So today we are going to discuss about the other relation, that is jural opposites. So I hope you guys are quite clear with the jural correlatives, as I tried to explain to you guys in the previous classes. So what are jural opposites? So let's start with the definition of the jural opposites, okay, as it has been defined. So it said in any legal relation between two parties, which is the same, okay, in any legal relation between two parties concerning a single act or omission, content, the presence of one conception in one party means the absence of the jural opposite in that party. So be very clear. If you guys have read already, then you probably noticed this already. So what does it mean? So it is concerning legal relation between two parties. Okay. If it is not about legal relation, then we cannot possibly be discussing about this. So it has to be concerning that. So it talks about a legal relation between two different parties concerning the content, that is single act or omission. Okay. Because if you have different act or omission, then you have different duty. You have different legal relations with respect to that. Okay. The presence of one conception in one party. Now here's the thing. Okay, presence of one conception in one party will mean absence of the jural opposite in the same party. Okay, so it's basically the law of non-contradiction. Okay. So I either exist or I do not exist. I cannot be existing and not existing at the same time, unless you are one of those fundamental particles. Okay, so yeah, so in this world that we live in, you either exist or you do not exist. In a similar way, we can say that you either have the right or you do not have the right. Okay, so you either have liberty or you do not have liberty. So you either have power or you do not have power. You either have immunity or you do not have immunity. So when I say that, I have a right, I at the same time, with respect to the same legal relation concerning the single act or omission, I cannot say that I do not have the right at the same time. So I either have a right that you pay me, rupees 10, or I do not have the right that you pay me rupees 10. So jural opposite, okay, as understood with respect to the case of right. So I either have right or I have no right. Okay, so that's the jural opposite. See, I'm referring to only me. Okay, only me. Okay, so it says presence of one conception in one party means the absence of the jural opposite in the same party. So I either have right. Okay, so if I have right, I do not at the same time, okay, not have right, because if I have right at the same time with regard to the same act or omission, I cannot be having no right. So that's what jural opposite is all about. Now let's look at it from liberty's perspective. So liberty means that, okay, I have a choice. I either do something or I do not do something. Now at the same time, if I have a duty that I do something, then I do not have a choice. If I have a duty that I abstain from, something, then I do not have a choice. That means I do not have the liberty. So that's how liberty and duty are opposite. So if I have liberty, I do not have duty with respect to the, same act or omission. So I either have liberty to walk on the lawn, okay, or I do not have the liberty to walk on the lawn. Okay. Now think of it. If I have a duty, okay, to walk, okay, then do I have a choice? I don't. So, or if I have a duty not to walk, do I have a choice? Even then I do not have a choice. So that means I do not have liberty. So that's how, means that if I have liberty, I cannot at the same time be having duty with respect to the same act or omission. Now let's look at the same thing from the perspective of power. Okay, so power, you remember, power has some, creative, nature in it. Okay, so it creates a legal relation, it changes legal relation. Okay, so I either have the power to sell my property, okay, or I do not have the power to sell the property. Okay, So if I have the power to sell the property, because selling would involve creation of new legal relations, so it's the case of power. So if I have the power to sell a particular piece of land, I cannot have the disability, from selling the property, the land at the same time. So it's very simple. If you have one of the jural opposites, you do not have the other. The same goes for immunity, okay? That others cannot sell the land, so you have that immunity that others do not sell the land. So if you have the immunity, then you do not have this liability that your land is sold. So I hope you guys understood what jural opposites are you guys clear? Any difficulties in understanding this specific relation?
So can you explain the last point?
Which
in
one?
relation to immunity and liability.
Immunity and liability. Okay, so immunity means what? That others do not change your legal relation, isn't it? I mean, because the other group is all about this power relation. So what does it mean? So let's take an example. So for example, you own a piece of land, and one of the incidences of owning a landed property would be that you are the one who has the power to sell the property. Okay, so you have that power with respect to that land. You also have the immunity that others do not sell your land. Okay, that others do not sell your land. So that's the immunity that you have, that others do not change your legal relation with respect to the matter. Okay. So if that's the case, okay, so if you have immunity, you cannot at the same time be having liability. That so what does liability basically mean? Okay, so liability is what? Correlative of power. Okay, liability is the correlative of power. So let's look at this matter. Someone else has the power to sell the land. Okay, then I have the liability. Okay, what is the liability? That the land is sold. Okay, now if you have the liability that the land is sold, do you also have the immunity that the land is not sold? That cannot be the case. Okay, because they are just not compatible, they are opposites. Okay, so that's what I was trying to explain, that if you have immunity that your land is not sold, you cannot have the liability at the same time that your property is sold. So are you with me with this example I gave you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about the others? Are you guys there?
Yes, sir. Okay. Power is jural opposite with immunity.
No. Okay, let me make it clear.
Sir,
Let me make it.
I got confused. Oh, I'm sorry.
Akia, tell me, what's the confusion?
Sir, I got confused with the last point, immunity and disability.
Okay,
and
let me do one thing. I think I'm being unfair to you guys by not drawing as I did in the last class. Okay, I suck at that, but I will nonetheless try. Just a second. What the hell is that option? Just a second, give me a second. Where was that option the last time I used? I can't find it anymore.
The bottom right, there are 3 dots.
The bottom right, nah? That's where it was.
Yes.
Yeah. I no longer.
Actually, it's showing in my this.
It's showing in yours.
Yes, sir. Whiteboard open as well.
That's weird. It should have been here. It doesn't show here. Okay. I got it. Got it. Got it. Don't worry. It's very slow. Okay, so I'll try to draw that thing that I did in a review in the other class. So just so that it makes sense here. So you remember the that drawing that we did in the last class. So I'm going to do the same here again. So we have R, okay, that represents right. Here we have liberty or privilege, whatever, okay. Here we have duty. And do you guys see it? Are you able to?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is your no right, okay. This is no right. And on this side I have this is power. This is your immunity. This is your liability. Sorry. This is your liability, and this is your disability. Okay, now you have two D's. I just put I here maybe. So yeah, so these two are okay. So you see, in the other class we drew vertical lines, and they represented what? Correlatives. Remember? So these were our correlatives. Remember, right duty, and you have liberty, no rights. You have power, liability, and then you had immunity, disability. These were your correlatives. It meant what? In any legal relation between two parties concerning single act or omission, the presence of one in one party would ensure the presence of the other in the other party. That was the Jural correlative. All these vertical relations that we looked at in the other class. Today we are discussing about Jural opposites. Okay, so Jural opposites are all these diagonal relations. Okay, diagonally opposite, as you see. Are you able to see? So right would be Jural opposite of no right, and you see the liberty is Jural opposite of duty. On the other side, you see power is the Jural opposite of disability, and you have immunity, which is the opposite of liability. Are you able to see? Say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the lines that you see in the middle are basically, I'll just put arrows so that you do not confuse them with any letters that I wrote here. The same happens on the other side, okay? So yeah, so what's the legal relation? The same, okay, in any legal relation between two parties concerning single act and act or omission, okay, the presence of one conception in one party, okay, means the absence of the Jural opposite in that party, in the same party, okay. We are not talking about the other party, we are talking about the same party, okay. So what does it mean? So focus of this is this, that okay, it talks about one party, okay. So yeah, so it means what? I either have right or I do not have right. So if I do not have right, that means I have no right, okay. So right is the opposite of no right. The same goes for the other one. You see liberty and duty, okay. These diagonally opposites are Jural opposites. So I either have liberty or I do not have liberty. I gave you examples to prove it, okay, how it works. So I either have a right that you pay me rupees 10, okay, or I do not have the right that you pay me rupees 10, okay. They both will not exist at the same time. So I cannot have a right that you pay me rupees 10, okay, and at the same time I have no right with respect to the same act and omission. So remember, that's what makes it does not mean that you cannot owe me anything else, okay. So do not confuse it, okay. We are still concerned about a single act or omission. So all I'm saying is that with respect to that rupees 10, okay, that we are concerned about, okay, I either have a right that you pay me or I do not have a right that you pay me that rupees 10. Okay, so I cannot at the same time be having the right that you pay me rupees 10 and not have the right that you pay me rupees 10. So I either have right or I do not have right, or I either have right or I have no right. Okay, so I cannot have both at the same time. Okay, that's simple. There's nothing complicated here. The same goes here. I either have liberty, okay, or I have duty. I cannot have both at the same time. What does liberty mean? Liberty means you have choice, okay? What does that mean? So I either have the choice, okay, to eat the food that I have, or I do not have the choice to eat the food that I have, okay, before me. So I have liberty to eat. So for example, okay, I have the choice, okay. Now for example, if I had a duty to not eat, okay, the food before me, okay, do I have a liberty then to eat the food? Say yes or no. Are you guys there?
Sir, can you please repeat once?
Well, am I not audible? I mean, is
no, sir, actually, we have to change tabs between
Yes, sir.
that whiteboard and Google Meet, so that's why we are late.
okay? So you hear later than I speak here.
Sir, if possible, can you please share the screen, because this way on phone it's difficult to view. We have to download another app to view the screen.
Okay. So do you have the book with you? I shared
Yes,
the
sir.
soft copy of the book. So
Yes,
open.
it's free.
There are like tens of like here windows open here. So I don't want to share everything with you. I'm a little concerned about that. If I were using the university, and PC, I would have shared, but I'm really sorry. So I will ask you guys instead to open your book. Okay, open the book that I had shared. Okay, Suriratnapala. Okay, now go to the portion that deals with Hohfeld's analysis of jural relations. Okay, and then you will see in that portion, you will first see jural correlatives, and then you will see jural opposites, and you will see that there is a figure. Okay, there is a figure there drawn. Okay, and you will see the jural relatives, jural opposites, drawn there. Can you see it? I have shared the book with you guys already.
Yes, sir.
Hi, are you guys there? Are all of you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Which page number is this?
Okay, the rest? Okay. Ishan, Gridhi?
Sir, I can find it. Can you please give us the page number?
The page 302.
Okay, in the book that I shared, I do not know the exact number, so Harsh just said that it's 302. I'll just check, okay, I think. Just a second. You should know how to find the page in the book. I mean, just go to the portion that deals with rights. From there, go to the portion that deals with Hohfeld's analysis of jural relations. From there, it's just a couple of pages, okay? Go find it.
Yes, I got it.
You got it? Okay. So, if you are there, then see, there's a figure drawn there. I hope you guys are able to see that. Are you able to see it? Do you see the diagonally opposites?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
do
sir.
you see the diagonally opposites? So, what's the opposite of right that you see?
All right.
No right. So, yeah. Shreya Kumar, are you there? Shreya Kumar. Do not tell him, WhatsApp him and tell him that I'm calling his name now.
Sir, I'm here.
Then respond in time, okay? So, what's the opposite of liberty?
Restraint.
What? What is the opposite of liberty?
Sir, just a second. Sir, duty.
Okay, good. Very good. And then, sorry, I confused you with Shreya. There's another fellow. So, yeah. Rajat, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so tell me, what's the opposite of immunity?
Sir, liability.
Yeah, good, very good. So, Sanskar.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the opposite of power then?
Sir, without power?
No. What's the opposite of power? As you see in the figure.
Acha, figure, sir.
I know you either have power at your home or you do not have power at your home. But that's not the one I'm concerned about. That also fits with non-contradiction. But check the figure and let me know what's the opposite of power.
Sir, I'm opening in my phone, sir.
But I've been telling you guys. So PDLI. I gave you a very easy mnemonic, trick. RNDP or RNDL, and then PDLI. Okay. So right, no right. Duty, liberty. These are opposites. PDLI. So power, disability are opposites, and liability and immunity are opposites. Are you guys with me? You can keep this, in your mind like that if you use certain mnemonic techniques. Okay. So what's the opposite of power now? Tell me.
Sir, liability.
No. Okay, you do not have it open. I just told you PDLI. Okay, power, disability, liability, immunity. Those are opposites.
So disability.
Yeah. Now we are there. Okay. So I hope everyone heard. I hope it's clear to everyone. Twinkle, Deoraja.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what's the opposite of liability?
Liability. Immunity.
Yeah. Good. Very good. So yeah, but that's not enough though. You need to understand what it means. Okay, what it means. Okay. So law of non-contradictory says that you either exist or you do not exist. Okay, you cannot exist and not exist at the same time. So you are not Schrodinger's cat. Okay. So what we are concerned about here is that you either have right. Okay. So let's take the first example. Okay. You either have right or you do not have the right. Okay. So when you have right, what could be an example of you having right? So I told you that someone owes you, rupees 10. So someone has the duty to pay you rupees 10. So you have the right that you are paid rupees 10. Okay. So you have right. You cannot at the same time. Okay. Remember, you can have right that you are paid rupees 10 by someone else. Or that's there. I'm not denying that. Okay. So what I'm concerned about here is this, that you either have the right that you are paid rupees 10. But if you have the right that you are paid rupees 10, you cannot at the same time have no right that you are paid rupees 10. Okay. So it's that simple. Both cannot exist with respect to the, between two parties with respect to the single act on omission. Okay. At the same time in one party. Okay. So that's what is being said here. Okay. Now with respect to the same matter. So for example, you have the duty. Okay. Think about the other side. Okay. The other side has the duty to pay rupees 10. Okay. Now, can that other party also have liberty not to pay rupees 10? Can they?
No, sir.
No, it's that simple. Because if the other party had the choice of not paying rupees 10, then that party has liberty. So if there is a duty, there cannot be liberty. And if there is a liberty, then there cannot be duty. I hope you guys understood now. Okay. So same example, okay? Party A, party B, okay? So we have two parties. We go by the definition, okay? We have two parties. We have party A, party B concerning single act and omission, okay? So for example, paying of rupees 10, okay? So party B owes the duty to party A to pay rupees 10. So party A has a right that B pays rupees 10, okay? So that's the right duty correlative, okay? Now, if party A has the right that he's paid rupees 10 by B, then party A cannot have no right that, is paid rupees 10 by B. Okay. So that's the Jural opposite with respect to party A. Okay. Now let's look at the party B and the Jural opposite that concerns party B here. Okay. So party B had the duty of paying rupees 10 to A. Okay. If party B has the duty to pay rupees 10, then party B does not have. That's the opposite, okay? These two cannot exist at the same time in one party, okay? So if party B has the duty to pay rupees 10, party B cannot have the liberty to either pay or not to pay at the same time the rupees 10 to A. So do you see how this whole thing works? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anyone who thinks that, who still yet thinks that it's not, clear, you can tell me, but do not mess up in the examination. Because if you do, I cannot then say that, well, these are subjective questions, I will exercise my discretion, and then, I will not be able to do that. So you have to be that clear. So are you guys clear with it? I'm assuming if there is no, then I'm assuming it's clear. Now then let's move to the next table. As you see, okay, what does the next table show us? It shows power, disability as opposites, okay, liability and immunity as opposites. Let's take an example of power. So you own a land, okay, you own a piece of land, okay. So owning a land comes with many such, legal incidences, okay. So for example, one of the incidents would be that you have the power to sell the property. Now selling is a case of power. Why? Because when you sell, you create new rights and duties. As that happens, you will study later, okay. In transfer of property, you will see, for example, sale of landed property, etc. You will see different rights and duties discussed there as well, okay. So power essentially involves what? It creates, okay, it has certain generative, creative potential. So it creates legal relations. So if you sell the property, you create new, rights, duties, liberties, whatever, okay. So with respect to the land that you own, okay, one of the incidences is that this one, okay, you have the power, okay, to sell the property, okay. Now, if you have the power to sell the property, okay, well, in this situation, I think this will not be a best case, okay, best example of it, okay, best example of it, okay. Now, for example, your property is subject to certain, so for example, I will not go into all those complications. So for example, based on a judgment of a court, okay, your property is now to be, sold off to pay off all the debts, okay, that you incurred, okay. Now there's an authority which has been empowered to sell the property, on your behalf, okay. Now that authority, suppose, has the power to sell the property, okay, power to sell the property. So selling is a case of power, okay. Now you, the person who owns the property, okay, you now have the liability that your property is sold. So are you guys with me? Are you guys with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with respect to that property I'm referring to, okay, because this particular authority has the power to sell off the property, so you are liable, because that selling would bring about changes in legal relation, okay. It's liable to be sold, okay. Now think about the same matter, okay. If it is liable to be sold, based on the exercise of the power, power of the other authority, then do you have immunity that the property is not sold? Do you have immunity?
No, sir.
No, you cannot, because if you have the immunity, then the authority here does not have the power to sell the property. Are you guys with me on this? Okay.
Yes, sir.
It's very clear then. Now, if this authority has the power to sell the property, okay, does that authority that I was referring to also have disability from selling the property? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No. So that's the case. That authority either has the power to sell the property or doesn't have the power to sell the property. Okay. So that's your jural opposites. I hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay. So that's your jural opposites. Okay. Let's now proceed to the third relation that we are concerned here. Okay. So what's the third relation? The third relation is of that of jural contradictories. Yes, Ashu, what's the question? Okay, so I got it.
Jural
Okay.
opposite, sir.
Yeah. Sorry. So Jural opposites is clear. Okay. And now the next relation that we are going to look at is Jural contradictories. Okay. Jural contradictories. Now you know in that diagram. Okay. We drew all possible lines, but you still see there are certain gaps. Okay. The gaps are between R and L, D and R, then P and I on the and then at the bottom you see between L and D. So these are, if you draw now horizontal lines, okay, on this figure that we drew, those are cases of Jural contradictories. Now this relation was not identified by Hohfeld himself, but another jurist by the name Granville Williams had come up with this. But this is self-explanatory though. It's easily understandable what this basically means. So what does this legal relation mean? Okay, what is Jural contradictory? So it says in any legal relation, okay, in any legal relation between two parties, so it's the same thing, okay, concerning single act and omission, the presence of one conception, okay, the presence of one conception in one party. So if one conception, let's say that R, okay, right, is present in one party, A, okay, means the absence of the contrary. Okay, so unlike correlatives, okay, in which the other one was present in the other side, okay, other party, in this one there is an absence of the contradictory. So what you see across the line, okay, so right, liberty are your contradictories. So if A has right, okay, B does not have liberty. So that's what he said. So in any legal relation between two parties concerning a single act or omission, the presence of one conception in one party means the absence of the contradictory in the other party. So what are contradictories here? Let's look at that first. Okay, so right and liberty are contradictories. Duty and no right are Jural contradictories. Power and immunity are Jural contradictories, and liability and disability are contradictories. Okay, now what's the legal relation? So if A has R, that is right, okay, B does not have L, that is liberty. Let's understand in the light of the example that we discussed, okay. We discussed that in a legal relation between two parties, A and B, okay, concerning a single act or omission, that rupees 10 is paid, okay. If rupees 10 is paid, okay, is to be paid, that's the duty that B has, to pay rupees 10 to A, okay, to pay. So in a case of act, okay, it says the presence of one conception. So if A has the right that A is paid rupees 10 by B, okay, then it says that there is an absence of the opposite, of the contradictory in B. So if I have a right that I am paid rupees 10 by B, then B does not have the liberty to either pay or not pay the rupees 10 to me. So is that understandable? Is it difficult? Do you guys get what I'm trying to tell you?
Yes, sir.
It's very easy. It's very easy. Okay. So you see, is it duty and liberty are opposites. Okay. So B either has duty or B has liberty. Okay. Now if B has liberty, then if B has duty, B cannot have liberty. Okay. So that's how that relation. So if A has right, then B cannot have liberty. It's so simple. The entire structure is conceptually connected. Now let's look at what we have below. Okay. Now if B has a duty to pay rupees 10 to A, then A has the right that B pays the rupees 10. Okay. That means A cannot have no right that B does not pay rupees 10. So as simple as that. Okay. If B has a duty, A does not have no right. Okay, what does that mean? A has a right. Okay, so as simple as that. Do you guys see it? I don't think I need to explain this anymore. It's self-explanatory if you just look at it. The whole thing is conceptually connected. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
very clear. Okay, so let's look at the other side then. Okay, so you see that uh, power and immunity are jural contradictories. So either that authority I was talking about, if either that authority has the power to sell the land, okay. If that authority has the power to sell the land, what does that mean? The other party does not have immunity, okay. If the other party had immunity, from the property being sold, then the authority does not have the power to sell the property, okay, the land, okay. Same if you look at this relation between your liability and disability, okay. If B has the liability that the land is sold, okay, then the other party, the authority we were discussing about, okay, does not have disability from selling the land off, okay. So you see, this is the case of jural contradictory. So in any legal relation, okay, between two parties, okay, concerning single act and omission, the presence of one conception in one party would mean that there is an absence of the jural contradictory in the other party. So that's your what do you call it? Uh, this Hohfeld's analysis of jural relations. So there are three. We first discussed about how he says that it's not proper to use only the word right for different legal relations that arise. So starts with giving us different vocabularies. So in place of rights, we now have claim rights or rights in the strict sense. Then we have something called liberty, and then we have something called power, and then we have something called immunity. And he tells us about the correlatives, okay? Correlatives, basically presence of one in one party would mean the presence of the other in the other party. So the correlatives for right would be duty, for liberty would be no right, for power would be liability, for immunity would be disability. So that's the correlative. Then we see that there is another relation, and what is that? That is jural opposites. So that would mean that presence of one in one party would mean absence of the other in the same party. Those are all opposites. I either have a right or I do not have a right. I either have liberty or I have a duty. I cannot have both at the same time with respect to same act or omission. The same goes on the other side. I either have the power or I do not have the power. So if I do not have the power, that means I have disability. I either have the immunity or I have the liability, okay? So if I have immunity, I cannot have liability at the same time. So those are your jural opposites, okay, based on the law of non-contradiction. And then the third relation, which is identified by Glenn-Williams, is the case of jural contradictories, which means presence of one in one party would mean absence of the other in the other party. Okay, so all the horizontal relations. So I either have right, okay, so if I have right, then the other party cannot have liberty. So if I have duty, then the other party cannot have no right. If I have power, then the other party does not have immunity. So if I have liability, then the other party does not have disability. So that's your Hohfeld's jural analysis, okay. Now you will see that there is a kind of relation that exists between these two different figures that we just drew. And what is that? You will see that they are kind of mirror and image, okay. Apart from the fact that in one there is you see that the first kind of incidences that we looked at, okay, the concepts that we looked at, okay, rights, duties and all that, okay, liberty, no rights, those are primary, similar to primary rules of obligation. The second one is secondary rules of power, etc. Okay, so that's the obvious difference that we notice, okay. Apart from that, you will see that there is a kind of this relation, okay. So one seems to be kind of a mirror image of the other, okay. How is that? So you will see that the power is a kind of liberty, okay. So what does that mean? Obviously they are not the same thing, because liberty does not have creative potential, power has, no denying that. But when we talk about power, okay, in what terms it is a kind of liberty? So the authority that exercises power has certain choice, okay. You may say that, well, some authorities do not have the choice, okay. There is no denying that either. But you see, when we talk about power generally, the choice nonetheless kind of exists, okay. So one example of that would be, so I have the power to sell my land, okay. If I have the power to sell my land, that does not mean that I have to sell my land. I have the that means that I have the choice to even not sell the land. Okay, so that's there. So you see, and immunity is kind of similar to rights. Okay, so rights mean that others do or do not do something, and immunity here also means that others do or do not do something. Okay, so that's the kind of uh, similarity that you notice on both the sides. Okay, the difference here, as I told you, one is basically represents the primary rule, the other one is kind of secondary rule, as H.L. Hart talks about. Okay, I hope this much is clear to you guys. Okay, so there are many examples that I can provide you to explain this whole thing. Now let's come to one certain issues. Okay, that we need to look at this stage. Okay, what are those? Okay, certain very important questions. Okay, so when we talk about specifically with respect to power, okay, I gave you enough examples for you to understand. Okay, let's look at certain examples of power. So when you own a land, okay, if you're the owner of land, one of the powers that you exercise is to sell the land. Okay, that's one of the examples. Okay, you can also rent it and whatever. Okay, you can lease it, whatever. You have so many such powers. Okay, so when we talk about you having right to property, it does not really convey much. It basically means that you could have many of these legal incidences as we just discussed. Okay, so power is one such. So when I talk about power, you remember it has creative. Okay, it creates certain legal relations. Okay, so if I sell the property, well, it brings about changes in legal relations. Okay, so it's a case of power. Okay, but what about natural causes? Okay, so for example, so for example, there's a particular duty that you have to deliver certain goods to a certain person at certain time. Okay, so you have a duty to deliver the goods at a certain time. Okay, at certain place, the other party has the right. But what happens is that due to intervening certain natural causes. So suppose there's a major storm and the vehicle in which you were carrying it, okay, gets stuck due to the storm and you are not able to deliver it on time. Although in normal situations you would have in all likelihood delivered the goods. Okay. Now because of this, you see there is a change in legal relation, isn't it? Otherwise you would have to deliver the goods on time at that place. Okay, but because of something that is beyond your control, now there is a change in the legal relation. So what about this? Okay, so this change in legal relation has been brought about by certain natural causes. So what about that? Another example that has been discussed in the book is that there is a ship which is damaged on the high seas. Okay, why? Because there was a major storm. Okay, and it's about to sink, and there are people on board. Okay, now there's a rule that says that the master of every passing sea has a duty to go to the assistance of the ship in distress. Okay, so what about this? Now you see that had there been no storm, these people would not, these other seafarers, okay, wouldn't have this duty to go and assist. Okay, but because of this natural cause, now suddenly they have this duty to go and assist this person, people who are in distress. Okay, what about these examples that I just gave you? It seems that in all these examples that I gave you, certain natural forces, okay, brought about creating new legal relations. So would those be a case of Hohfeldian power? So can we say that these are also examples of powers? Okay, well, not really. Okay, well, they are not really the case. Okay, now why is that? Okay, why is that? Okay, why are they not one of those examples of Hohfeldian power? It simply means that, well, those duties already existed. Okay, those duties already existed. Okay, the law already said that, well, if this situation were to emerge, then you are to go and assist. So it's not as if those duties never existed and these natural forces brought about those duties. Not the case, as would be the explanation in defense of the claim made by Hohfeld. Okay, so the same your law relating to contract also lays down, okay, that subsequent changes in situation, okay, beyond the control of the party, would basically be an excuse, okay? So it can bring about changes in legal relations. So those duties are also in existence, okay? So what the defense here is, the argument here is that, well, these natural forces did not create new legal relations. Those legal relations already existed. They merely got activated because of the new fact situation, okay, the new situation. So that's one example. So do not confuse power with those natural forces. Another important quick difficulties that we come across, important issue that we come across is whether, well, some people exercise their physical power. Okay, what about those power? Is Hohfeld referring to people exercising physical force, physical power? Okay, so what about those? So for example, there's an example given in the book, so I'll refer to that. It says, suppose someone, okay, C uses physical force to rob D of the money that she is carrying. Okay, so here's the example of physical force. Okay, now C had a duty not to rob D. Okay, there was a duty that existed. Okay, however, C, by his exercise of physical power, brought about new legal rights and duties. So what could be those new legal rights and duties? Now the person D who has been robbed can now go to court. Okay, so that's the power. Okay, and that D has now to go to the court. Okay, now the thing is that, suppose the matter is decided, okay, in the court. Okay, apart from the criminal aspect of it, the other aspect would be to compel the other party to return whatever has been robbed off. Okay, so that means now the other person has a duty to return. Okay, so what about these situations? So it seems that this subsequent legal relations, this subsequent incidences, okay, has been created because C chose to exercise physical power to rob D of her money. So what about those? Okay, so can we say that yes, it seems that exercise of physical power also creates legal relations? Now, what would be Hohfeld's argument as against that? So Hohfeld never uses power in the physical sense. He always uses it in the legal sense. So it's a kind of legal ability that one has. Okay, so they are not the same thing. Okay, but then it nonetheless seems to be the case that exercise of physical power also has generative potential. What about that? Well, Hohfeld would say that, well, it's not exercise of that physical power, but we saw that there was a duty that C had of not robbing D of the money she was carrying. Okay, so it's the breach of that duty rather than the exercise of the physical power, okay, that leads to the activation, okay, or creation, you can say, okay, leads to the activation of those other rights. Okay, now here's a very important thing that you need to look at. Okay, Hohfeld talks about different legal relations for this reason. Okay, that with respect to the same subject matter, there could be many different legal relations. We do not have to club them together and assume that, okay, they all are to exist at the same time. Okay, different legal relations could arise with respect to same subject matter subsequently as well. Okay, so for example, I enter into a contract with you to deliver certain goods at certain time at certain place. Okay, so I exercise certain power, okay, and then that creates certain legal relation. Okay, now I have now this duty. Okay, so the duty would be to deliver these goods by certain time, by certain at certain place. Okay, so that's the legal relation. Now what happens is that without any excuse, justification, I fail to do that. Okay, when I fail to do that, now other party has certain remedies. With other party has certain certain new legal relations that emerge. Okay, certain power that the other party might now exercise. Okay, so there could be many. Okay, one would be to go to court. Okay, to go to court to either to whatever the remedy the said person seeks. Okay, either to enforce the contract or pay compensation, damages, whatever. Okay, so you see that a subsequent legal relation emerges. Okay, now when the when that happens, now court decides. Okay, when the court decides, court provides a particular judgment. Okay, and decides the matter in favor of whatever the parties. Okay, so that now creates another sets of rights, duties, power, whatever. Okay, so you see, with respect to the same subject matter, many different legal relations can exist. So we are not to assume that that cannot happen. So that is something that we see here happening even here. Well, it is the breach of that duty by the person, okay, by C, that C head, of not robbing D off of her money, okay, that led to, the activation of a right that existed, okay. So that right came subsequently. It's not the exercise of physical power, okay, it's not the exercise of physical power, but a duty that already existed in C of not robbing D of the money, that basically led to the creation or activation of the right. So I hope this is clear to you. Please do not make this mistake in the examination of confusing Hohfeldian power with that of use of physical force or physical power. Okay, that's not the kind of power that Hohfeld is talking about. Now, there could be many different kinds of power. Okay, a police officer might have the power of making arrests. Okay, you may have the power of selling your property, as long as it involves bring about change in legal relation. Okay, whatever the kind of power it is. Okay, it is a case of power. Okay, there are many examples which are also discussed in the book, so just go there. Okay, you will understand that as well. Okay, now one problem that we come across is that the correlative of power is liability. Okay, so if you have property, one of the powers that you have is of gifting it, not just sell but also gifting, because when you gift property, even that brings about changes in legal relation. Okay, so it seems that the correlative of power is liability. So what about that? If I gift a property to someone, so that means the other party has liability, because liability seems to be understood in a negative sense of the term, isn't it? That when I'm liable, that has to be something negative, something bad that happens to me. Okay, but it seems, well, someone's gifting me, that seems to be something good that's happening to me. What about that? Now, as you will see, Hohfeld is not using the term liability in that negative sense of the term, as long as it brings about certain changes in legal relation. Okay, well, you can say that liability has there is a liability. Okay, but when I tell you about, for example, the case of gift. Okay, so if I gift something, okay, I have the power to gift. Okay, that does not mean that you have to accept the gift, so you are liable to accept the gift. No, not that. Okay, now once the power is exercised, you now have the choice. Okay, now there you have the power to accept it. Okay, when you have accepted it, that means now you are liable. Okay, so that means that this has brought about changes in the legal relation. So I will explain. I will stop it here for now. I will explain the rest in the next class.